And that's why I started it.
All right, good morning. My name is Darcy Burrows, and I'm a librarian with Clear Creek Independent School District.
Woo! Woo!
And I'm pleased to introduce our next speakers. Dr. Terry Lassane is a professor in the Department of Library Science at Sam Houston State University. Prior to her tenure at Sam, she was a middle school ELAR teacher. Terry is the author of 3 books, a dozen book chapters, including 2 to be published this year, and many other publications about books and reading and motivating students. She is past president of Allen and TCT ELA. Terry is the recipient of the Allen Award for her contribution to the field of adolescent literature. She has just been named a distinguished professor for SHSU. You can find Terry on social media at Professor Nana. Dr. Karen Perry is an assistant professor at Sam Houston State University in the Library Science Department.
Associate now.
Prior to working at the university level, she worked as a school librarian in both the elementary and middle school settings. Karen is the author of the audiobook review column Audio Talk in Voya magazine, and the young adult science fiction readers advisory book called Sci-Fi on the Fly. She is currently working on a book about sketchnoting in the classroom, which will be published later this year. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Terry Lassane and Dr. Karen Perry.
Karen is going to roam the stage. Karen is going to roam the stage. Hello. Maybe not.
Is yours clipped on or turned on? Oh, turn it on.
Oh, technology. Turn it on. I was so worried about the computer technology, I forgot about the audio. We're recording this, and we'll give you the link to where the YouTube video of this will be, because we're going to have to go really fast. We have like 40 minutes, and I think 90 slides the last time I counted, because Karen keeps sliding some things in, and then I come behind her and slide in a few more. But we're going to talk about graphic novels this morning and their role in literacy development. And, I want to make one correction first for Karen. She's now Associate Tenured Professor of Library Science. Been so long since I did that, but it is a big deal. Anyhow, we talk an awful lot about graphic novels, and we discovered that, well, come on, discovered that not everybody, well, this would be lovely if the slide advanced. There we go. And what you'll have when you see the entire program as a YouTube video is we have all these ways of getting in touch with us. But if you want to take a shot with your camera, this is how you reach me. I'm on Twitter as Professor Nana. I have a fairly inactive young adult blog right now. I have a live journal blog where I rant and rave about all things educational. And I'm sure I'll have more to rant and rave about in the coming years with our new education secretary. And you can email me, did I say that out loud? You can email me at drl.shsu.edu. And for Karen, these are the hyperlinks for her.
I'm on Twitter at K Perry, and I have a Tumblr and a blog that I haven't done much lately, but you can email me at kperry@shsu.
She gets some interesting Twitter tweets and emails because of the K Perry. Yeah. Everybody thinks she's a different K Perry.
Hey, I got it before K Perry was a thing, so too bad for her.
Who knew? Here's where we will post the video when we're done, bit.ly/PPPD2016. Karen and I started our own YouTube channel in 2016 called Professors Providing Professional Development, but that takes too long to type, so it's just PPPD. We were going to call it Professors Providing Professional Development in Pajamas, because we've done a few in our pajamas, we've done a few in various places, and as a matter of fact, Darcy just reminded me that instead of carpool karaoke, we did carpool book talk. Last year as we were coming back from the Rio Grande Valley, which is like a 400-mile trip, and we got silly about halfway home and said, let's just do book talks, put that up on the dashboard. So we put our phone up on the dashboard and we book talked for several hundred miles, I think.
Well, that's all we talk about anyway.
So we may as well bore y'all with it. The genesis of this entire program came from some research Karen and I continue to do. We've got about 2,000 people, I think now, no, 2,500 because we have public librarians now. And we asked them whether or not they read graphic novels, and sadly, more than half of them don't. And yet, if we asked 2,000 kids, that number would be very different. We'd get a whole lot more yes than no. So we wanted to talk about graphic novels. And so we're going to kind of fly through this first set of slides because it's kind of like a how-to. So Karen, you want to kick us off?
Okay, for a great resource for graphic novels to read and broken down by category as well as grade level, go to noflyingnotypes.com. It's a comprehensive website. But we're like Terry said, we're going to go through really fast. There's some great professional reading for resources you can use. Page by page, panel by panel, and rationales for teaching graphic novels, both done or edited by Bucky Carter. Also, we've got Scott McCloud. He is well-known in the graphic novel world, comic world. He's got Making Comics and Understanding Comics. So those are both good. Also, a brand new one, a second edition of the Reader's Advisory Guide to Graphic Novels. It's an ALA, American Library Association publication. And it gives you some ways to approach kids about graphic novels and the benefits of it, of course, and then also some reader's advisory, some suggestions. So what is a graphic novel? It's generally used to describe a book that's written in comic book form. It resembles a novel in length and narrative development. So basically you would call a graphic novel something that's thicker. The ones that are still thin like this, you're still going to call it comic.
We feel the need to define that because the first time I used the word graphic novel, somebody said, oh, you mean like 50 Shades of Grey? And it's like, no, not that kind of graphic. Although, for some adults, that might be the way to get them into the field. But in this case, not so much.
But that's true too. That's true, graphic novel. But also, you hear graphic novels and say, oh, you mean like comic books? It's like, well, yes, because a lot of times graphic novels are collected volumes of comics that have been put into a book, which is just fine. But you get the nose turned up, you get the lip turned up whenever they hear graphic novels or comics, which you'll see, they're so beneficial. All right, the following slides come from getgraphic.org. And there's a link to the slideshow that you can watch. The reason we're using these is because they're very well done, and there's no reason for us to recreate the wheel, right? So we are giving attribution here. Okay, so parts of a graphic novel, of course, cover and inside pages. Then we've got, inside those pages, you've got panels and gutters, dialogue balloons, thought balloons, captions. Those all look different. And then sound effects. Sound effects are like, those Batman, pow, stuff.
Onomatopoeia. It's an English term.
So you can see the captions are square, usually that's like the narration. Thought balloons are the round with the bubbles going to the person that's thinking. The panel is just the individual square that the drawing is in. The gutter is the space between each panel. And the dialogue balloons are round as well, but they have an arrow instead of the thought, the bubbles, going to the person that's speaking. So you read a graphic novel just like you read traditional text, from left to right, top to bottom. So you can see the very easy format there. And here, thought balloons are the same, or thought balloons or dialogue balloons are the exact same way. Within each panel, you go top to bottom, left to right. Back to that thought one or dialogue. See, so they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Top to right, top to bottom, left to right. But sometimes it gets complicated. That's a very busy panel, that next one right there. But it's still, you're going to start on the left and go top to bottom, and I think the next one's numbered for us. There you go. So, left to right. So you're going to read that panel, and that panel, and that panel, okay? And then inside there, you do the same with the thought bubbles. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Okay, into the borrowed slides.
So we ask ourselves, how do we evaluate graphic novels? And I do the same thing that kids do and that you do, even though you might not admit it. I start with the cover. And we were watching yesterday, kids were helping us sort the books that I brought to give away today. And I told them they could keep anything that looked interesting to them. Well, they were making judgments on the cover. Only once did I see somebody turn the book over, and I never saw anybody open it up to look at the blurb on the inside cover. It was like, oh, that looks cool. Here's my stack. So we may as well just go ahead and talk about, what about the cover? Is it attractive?
It's also interesting that they were pretty accurate in their decision on if it was going to be a middle grade versus a YA, just by looking at the cover. And they got it right just about every time when they were trying to make that distinction just by looking at the cover.
I love the cover of this graphic novel. This is Lint Boy, and it's a brand new graphic novel, and it's about Lint Boy and his favorite friend, who is also made of lint, and they live in the dryer. And one day, the hand that comes into the dryer to take the clothes accidentally grabs Lint Boy's friend, and he has to go on a search for his friend, and he's assisted by socks who have lost their mates. I mean, it's a scream for me. I'm not sure how many kids will get that, but it's like 2 go in, 1 comes out. And it's because of what's happening in this dryer and that hand that comes in, a very evil person at the other end of it. So it's just wonderful. The illustrations are very different, kind of light colored, until you move to, here comes the evil person, and that's all in black and white. So you've got a great cover on it. We also want to make sure that the cover clearly indicates the topic or the theme of the book. Karen?
So,
Secret
there we
coders.
go, there's a little delay. Okay, so very clearly we know from looking at these covers that this is going to be a graphic novel about a group of friends doing something. And a little mysterious maybe. And so this is the series, The Secret Coders by Ken Molyneux and Mike Holmes. They're great. And in this day and age where we're doing coding with kids, these are wonderful because it takes them through the very beginnings of coding, and each one covers a different level of programming. And it walks them through using a mystery that's going on at their school, how to program. And along the way, it kind of walks you through how to do it yourself and kind of gives you a chance to practice what they're teaching you. They're great. So there's the first 4. The orange one is not out yet, but the 4th one is coming out soon.
We also want to look at the covers and try to decide what's the targeted group here. And as Karen said, those kids yesterday were like, this is elementary, this is middle school. A couple times they'd hold up a book and we go, high school, because they were intermediate kids, so we know what a high school cover looks like. So here are 2 graphic novels, and to me it's really easy, which is elementary and which is secondary. So which is the elementary title here? Beandog and Nugget. And if you don't know these, they're hysterical. They're good friends, Beandog and Chicken Nugget. Why not make food animated and put it in a graphic novel? And Bad for You is a graphic novel which is nonfiction. That's tough. We don't call it graphic nonfiction. We call it graphic novel nonfiction, which is a whole lot of fun. Bad for You are about all the things your parents say are bad about you and whether or not that's true or not. So
not bad about you, but bad for you.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, bad for you.
Bad about you. Well, you really keep a messy room.
Yeah, that's right. That would be a different graphic novel. We want to look at interior art, and we want to make sure that the art is aesthetic. It's pleasing to the eye. I think about a graphic novel and an interior art the same way I do when I evaluate a picture book. Do the text and the illustrations work well together? Are the illustrations matching the text in mood and tone and other kinds of things? So here we've got Anya's Ghost coming up. There you go.
And some of it is also preference of style. You have to think about that too. But here's Anya's Ghost. Great graphic novel, ghost story. Starts out kind of okay, but man, it takes kind of a really sinister turn. The cover. Anya's ghost. Anya's hair is flowing up, and inside her hair, I don't know if you can see it, is the outline of the ghost. All right. So you notice on the panels over there, at the top you're going to go pant, pant. Okay, so she's she already fall. Okay, I think she's already in the stalls in a hole or a well.
Yeah, she's fallen in the well.
So she's scared. So she gets out her cigarette. She's smoking, and then all
Which, of course, people don't do until they're the appropriate age.
Right.
Yikes.
And then, okay, so look at the color. So we notice the color is very muted. It's dark. Okay, so it's kind of a sinister or scary type situation for her. You can see the smoke billowing. It's getting lighter. Okay, so it's filling up the room, and then all of a sudden, the ghost, of course, is in a different color. Very light compared to the dark background.
So for your teachers that want to teach symbolism, color symbolism is one of the easiest ways to get kids to understand. But before they get to the Mask of the Red Death, which is pretty complicated, we can start with something like Anya's Ghost. Vera Broskell, who's the author and illustrator, won a Caldecott last year for Leave Me Alone. So you can have kids look at her work in graphic novels, look at her work in picture books, and see whether or not they can see similarities. They can certainly see differences between the two. We want appropriate and relevant format and content when we look at graphic novels. And really, the content runs the gamut. This is one of my favorites from 2 years ago now. It's Drowned City, and it's a graphic novel about Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans and about what happened during that particular period of time. You've got several different storylines going on as they were going on TV as we were watching. So, you know, you've got the approaching storm, the levees breaking, the floodwaters coming in, and it's all done in graphic novel format with very little text. So you can, to me, it's a read quickly, but it's also a pore over the illustrations kind of book.
Don Brown also has a great one about the Dust Bowl.
Right.
And it's great. So, okay, so use of a variety of appropriate symbolic art, such as text bubbles, graphic representations, and effects and emotions. So you'll see in the next slide. It's a little less.
Hint, Terry.
Okay, so emotions, symbols, format. All right, very simple. We've got 2 panels on this page. We have got a great emotions. Man, look at her face. What is she feeling? Yeah, here, very clearly. And look at the way that they are representing that she is down low, far in something. Up in that top right of that second bubble is the small opening of the well she fell through. And then, how do you know she hit really hard on the ground? The thud is written really big, but in addition to that, look at her hand where she hits the ground. They did that little white star coming out from where she hit, meaning impact, meaning, okay, so that shows it as well. So that's very well done, all without words, in pictures showing what she's feeling, how hard she hits, how low she is, how far she fell.
Talk to your English teachers about how this can cover so many of the objectives they have in terms of teaching reading. And we can do it with a graphic novel. And we can do it with just a few pages from a graphic novel and then let kids decide whether or not they're going to read. We thought we'd start with graphic novels for young readers. That kind of makes some sense. If you don't know Baby Mouse, leave right now. I read the first Baby Mouse and just fell in love with it, and I got a chance to write the teacher's guide. And I'm putting that in quotes because really you need a teacher's guide. But the publisher wanted a teacher's guide, so I wrote it for like the first 4 books. So I have a cute little, couple little pictures of Baby Mouse that Matthew was kind enough to send to me. One that says Professor Nana, and it's got Baby Mouse kneeling and holding me out a cupcake. I know, and if you come to my office, you can see that. Baby Mouse, this is the early book, Queen of the World. She has a great inner life, but her reality life, not so good. You're going to see Baby Mouse again because she is now the star of not a graphic novel, but in the workshop we do later, she has her first middle grade novel. It's Baby Mouse Tales from the Locker. And if you think Baby Mouse has trouble here, wait till you see what middle school is
But
like.
she's always finding her locker.
Yeah.
Always. And her whiskers.
Lunch Lady, still one of my all-time favorites. There's all kinds of intrigue, but I love that Lunch Lady is 007 with a hairnet. And she's got an assistant named Betty who makes all kinds of contraptions, like the spatula you see there turns into a copter blade, and it allows Lunch Lady to fly so she can defend herself against the cyborg substitutes. And again, this is a nice long one. Both Baby Mouse and Lunch Lady are almost monochromatic. So you get to Baby Mouse, it's black and white and pink. That's it. Lunch Lady is usually yellow and some shades of green. And it depends on the topic, the coloring will shift just a little. So we want to show this to kids. It's not just having fun reading the books, that's great, but also kind of taking a look at what's going on. Now, Squish was a minor character in Baby Mouse. Squish is an amoeba. And all of the characters in this book are single-celled organisms. I would have passed freshman biology had I had this book back then, because I now understand the difference between amoeba and paramecium and the rest of the characters who are Squish's friend. If you look at Squish's hat, it always has an emoticon on it, and it lets you know how he's feeling at the time. I kind of like that a lot.
Yeah, this is you.
This is me too, okay. Toon Books has a wonderful series of graphic novels for really young readers. This is Lanier's, who is an internationally acclaimed illustrator, The Big Wet Balloon. And it's a graphic novel, but it looks very much like a picture book. So it's one that would be a nice transition for those really little kids who want to read the big kids' books. So they want to move up to Baby Mouse. You can start with the picture book, move up to The Big Wet Balloon and the other Toon books in the series, and they're leveled. Now, not by readability, but they're like level 1 for really young readers, level 2 for kids who are starting to get the hang of graphic novels. So you can kind of move them along to other graphic novels. Is this me too?
Oh, well, it's Dogman. So.
I was going to say, why not? Dave Pilkey, Captain Underpants, of course. This is his new series. It's called Dogman. He's a dog and a policeman. And all kinds of things happen. And you will find all kinds of little guest appearances in here. There are already 2 books in the series. I'm sure there will be at least 20 more. It's just going to be fun. And we think that Dave Pilkey will be the opening keynoter at the North Texas Teen Book Festival this year. So we're like salivating. Who gets to introduce him? Kind of thing. So here's Dogman. I just love this. The chief is getting a new couch, and you can kind of sort of already see what's going to happen. He's a dog. Just because he's a policeman doesn't mean he doesn't have dog kinds of things. And what do dogs do to brand new couches? It's usually not very nice.
Comic Squad. There are 3 of these. You can go ahead and go through the others so you can see Recess. Lunch was number 2. And third, which is coming out
July.
Is Detention. Now, what's great about these 3 books is they are edited books, meaning they have collections of short stories, all comic book form, from various artists. So this is great because you get a sampling of other artists' work. Plus, it's short stories in graphic novel form. So you can see along the outside of that square are all of the authors that are in there. So we've got Jared
Krzyzewska.
Lunch Lady, Matt Nealon, George O'Connor, who's one of my graphic novel crushes. But Ben Hatke, Hatke, he's probably number 1 book crush. He's the cutest guy. Jennifer and Matt Holm, of course, and then a couple of others. So you get some new people in there that I'm not familiar with, so I'll be learning their new styles, which I think is great for kids to see that. Because a lot of things I said is depending on preference when you're looking at if you think a graphic novel is attractive to the eye or not.
And the nice thing about having a collection here is you can go through and say, how do you know you're looking at Jenny and Matt Holmes' work?
Yeah.
Not just the character, but also the style. Victoria Jameson, who did Roller Girl, has a piece in here. Can you identify which piece of art she is if I take her name off? You should be able to do these things. And if they can do that, that means what they're understanding are the critical attributes that these authors and illustrators bring to their work. Karen would not forgive me if we didn't have a section of fantasy and science fiction graphic novels. And it's kind of fun to see what people do. I love this series, and there are 2 books out already. This is Cleopatra in Space. She somehow time travels from ancient Egypt, ends up in outer space at kind of like a Jedi academy, and discovers that she has some really interesting powers, but there are people trying to track her down. So it's action, adventure, mystery, a little bit of history thrown in there just for the fun of it. And there are the other books in the series.
It's a great series.
I love A Wrinkle in Time. It's been one of my favorite books since I read it as a kid. But it's a tough go for a lot of kids. It's a tough book to read. There's so much going on. The language is elevated, and all of the different kinds of threads of the story. But in Hope Larson's re-envisioning as a graphic novel, A Wrinkle in Time can be read by every kid because the text is diminished, and instead the pictures tell a lot of the story. Now, I already knew the story, so I was able to follow it, but we've given it to some kids who don't know the novel form of Wrinkle in Time, and they're able to walk away from it knowing the story. And honest to Pete, that's more important to me than if they read the actual book. If they've read the graphic novel and they understand what's going on in this world that L'Engle created, I've done my job.
And not all adaptations are quality. This is a great one. Oh, Zeta the Space Girl, great adventure, great tough girl main character. And Hattie is the author. There's 2 or 3 in this series, and basically she is just, she has to save the world a couple of times. It's like space, and so there are aliens, and there are all kinds of things that she has to then save the world.
We could argue about this one, but I'll let you have it.
Oh, well, it's great. It's a very poor family of dad and his son. He can't afford to buy him a birthday present. He feels terrible about it. But he comes across this man who sells him a piece of cardboard. And he says, the only thing I need to tell you is bring me back the leftover pieces that you have. Let me be sure to bring it back to me. Well, he gives his son this cardboard, and the kid's great. So they make something. What happens is the cardboard, of course, is magical and comes to life. It is able to do things for this family. But of course, as always, there's a bad guy in the story. And of course, the cardboard gets taken advantage of and used in a bad way. And there's a terrible climax. And of course, you learn a lesson and happy endings. But it's really great.
Both of us are really excited about Scott Westerfeld's first graphic novel. This is Spill Zone, part of a new series. The second book won't be out till December, and we're already angry that it's not out now. But it is an absolutely wonderful, futuristic piece of science fiction and fantasy. It's the story of, it's in New Jersey, and it's the story of a part of the city that has been ravaged by something. They call it the spill zone, so we kind of sort of figure it's probably nuclear spill. And nobody's allowed in there because things have mutated. There are things that they call meat puppets, which are people that are no longer right kind of there in terms of thinking, meat puppets, and they're kind of scary. But then so are the rats that have mutated, and so is everything else that's mutated. You're supposed to stay out of it, but our main character, our heroine, gets on her motorcycle and goes into the spill zone, retrieving things, but more importantly, taking photographs, because collectors will pay to have photographs of this spill zone. One of the things we learned in this first book is that a similar incident has happened in North Korea. And there's somebody there who, because he was part of the spill zone, is probably going to hook up with this girl in the next book, we think.
Now,
No, go ahead.
Scott Westerfeld came up with this idea based on a true event. So, you know, like Chernobyl, right? And it was kind of closed down and people couldn't go. It's Chernobyl, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't go in for a long time, blocked off. Well, there was a person that unauthorized snuck in, a woman on a motorcycle, and snapped pictures of the devastation of this place. And he read an article about her And that's where he got the idea of a girl sneaking in to a place that has been shut down due to an incident and takes pictures. It's fascinating. You can go to thespillzone.com and you can read the graphic novel online. They released it, a new section of it every Wednesday until the release in actual book form.
This is another one by the guy that gave us cardboard.
Yeah.
This is Tommysaurus Rex, a boy who finds a baby dinosaur and raises him almost like a puppy. And he loves the dinosaur, and you can see from the cover the dinosaur loves him, but his neighbors are not really fond of his new pet, and therein lies some problems. We love Doug Tenable. He just does some really interesting kinds of things, kind of turning and twisting the archetypes we know into something a little bit different. Lowriders in Space won a Pura Belpré Award this year. How much did I love that? Because here in Texas, I don't have to tell you what a lowrider is. But when Karen and I go to other states, people say, what's a lowrider? And you know what? I'm not really good at answering that question. You know, I think I'm just going to shoot a video so I can show them what it likes. Yeah, go to YouTube and look it up. This is wonderful. They're kind of, they live in outer space and they collect all kinds of junk and they make lowriders out of them. So lovely kind of cultural references in here as well. Really enjoyed that. This is a new series from Judd Winnick, who gave us Pedro and Me way back in the day of MTV. Hilo is an alien. He's a boy who crashes to Earth. Unfortunately, he's being followed by some alien creatures who are not kind to the planet. Let's just put it that way. There are already 2 books. There'll be several more down the road.
Stitch is a short graphic novel from the Paper Cuts is the publisher of this one. It's a little girl who wakes up. You see, she's stitched up, kind of pieced together. She wakes up in the cemetery with absolutely no memory of what is happening, why she's there. She only knows her name, and her name is Crimson. While she's trying to find out about herself, she meets some werewolves and other things, and she sees a boy that she thinks is just the most pretty boy she's ever seen, she says. But along the way, she is then piecing herself together. And so what it says is sometimes you have to fall apart in order to pull yourself back together. Star Scouts is cute. It's a new graphic novel. The little girl is a human girl living on Earth, and she's new to her town, doesn't feel part of anything, and she is a member of I want to say the Flower Scouts, you know, like Girl Scouts. She's a girl like. There's an alien who is a member of Star Scouts, and she is not going to pass her next badge unless she comes up with an alien species to show. And she finds Earth and says, I've never seen anybody on Earth before, and finds her and snatches her and takes her into space with her as her artifact. And little human ends up loving it and thriving. And she becomes a Star Scout too, and starts participating. She loves getting out of space. But she has to try and get her father to realize she's still on Earth, or else she's going to be in trouble. Time Shifters. This is a story of a young man who comes across in the woods a dangerous guy, and with this weird thing on his arm, and he gets transported to a parallel world, and he has to battle the bad guys. Him and a group of good guys battle the bad guys in order to get back to his world and close it out so the bad guys can't follow him back in. Paper Girls, 80s, 70s, like 80s. 12-year-old girls deliver papers, and you get struck right at the beginning with a problem, and the problem is their town has disappeared. They're the ones that are left, and they have to figure out what's going on. There's several in this series. It's one of those that were comic books and collected in a volume. Toon is great. There's also a Toon 2. Basically, this young man up there doesn't really know what to do with his life. He's just apathetic, and he's approached by an alien that says, I've got a great opportunity for you. Why don't you come with me? Whenever you're done with what I'm going to have you do, I'll give you like $1 million. He's like, hey, that sounds great. Sign on the dotted line. Off he goes, and he realizes that he should have read the fine print. Because what he is he's been put in a cage, and he is like that attraction at the zoo. And all alone, and, he doesn't even know if he's ever going to get back home. Wires and Nerve. Who likes Marissa Myers, like Cinder, Scarlet, all of them? Okay, that's a great science fiction series about cyborgs and stuff, with a twist in each book on a different fairy tale. So Scarlet's like Little Red Riding Hood, and then there's
Cinder is Cinderella.
Oh, Cinderella, that's right. And then there's long hair.
Rapunzel.
Yeah. This is a graphic
Long hair.
novel. But what I like about it is it's a graphic novel that's not just a rehash of one of the books. I want a new story. That's what this is. It's a new story that follows the android, her friend that's through with her the whole time. Ico in one of those ending books gets a body, and here she is using it because she is the main character of this graphic novel series. It is following her. Now you get appearances from all the other big favorite characters from the books, but she is the one that is solving the problem with the help of a cute guy. There's a second one, I think it's the next slide, coming out January 2018, volume 2 will come out.
Nimona turns every single archetype upside down. And it's one of the reasons it was a finalist for the National Book Award. I served on that committee. We fought for this book. Noelle Stevenson is like 23. We hate her because she's young and vibrant and does some interesting books. Nimona is the character you see in the middle. She's a shapeshifter, and you have to be very careful how you say that word because otherwise it could come out wrong. And she wants to become involved. She wants to basically be hired by a villain. And she thinks the villain would be Sir Blackheart. You can kind of tell which one that is. But there's also another character called Sir Goldenloin. Turns out that Sir Goldenloin is actually pretty sinister, and Blackheart is actually kind of nice. So going against stereotype. She can change her body, she can change her hair. She just wants to go off on adventures. She's really self-sufficient. She's just absolutely wonderful. This is Karen's sketch note from the book. Wanted to kind of make sure that I worked that in because you can kind of get a chance to see a little bit about what sketchnoting's all about. I sit and watch her do this and just go, nah, can't do it. Just not good at it.
Tried so hard just to try and get him to accept her being a sidekick. She wants to be the sidekick so bad. And it's fantastic. But it's a great example of how you think the people that are doing the good, very behind the scenes, is really the bad guys. It's fascinating to watch that unfold.
Well, we'll throw in a few historical books too,
And
we're going to
to
start moving really quickly because we have 10 minutes. This is Boxers and Saints. It was a National Book Award finalist by Jean Lewin Yang, who's our children's literature ambassador right now, and he works in the graphic novel field. Boxers and Saints tells the story of the Boxer Rebellion from two sides: the boxers themselves, the soldiers, and everything that's going on there, and the church, which is coming in to try to convert everybody to Christianity/Catholicism. So the saints, and a girl who just falls in love with the story of Joan of Arc and becomes involved in this whole Boxer Rebellion. There are 2 books in this set, and you can read one or the other. It's interesting, I think, to read both. So if you want to do some reading groups, do something that's interesting, have kids read different parts of these books to do it. March, book 1, book 2, and then I don't have book 3 here, which is sad because that's the one this year that won 6 different awards. They couldn't put all the medals on the cover because you'd not see the cover. John Lewis won the National Book Award for this book as well. It's graphic novel, and March Book 1, Book 2, Book 3 talk about the important marches for civil rights. And the main character is John Lewis, who did March with Dr. King. And they all start in present day with somebody coming into his chambers, usually with children, and then saying, could you please tell my kids the story of? And so March 1, March 2, and March 3 ends with the big March on Washington. It's absolutely wonderful. If you want to cry, watch his acceptance speech at the National Book Award, where he talks about the importance of books and how hard it was for him to get books as a kid because he wasn't allowed to check books out of the public library. And I just sat there just in tears because I thought I was allowed, and we're kind of contemporaries, but white woman versus black man. This is a new one from Tobin Anderson, M.T. Anderson. It's called Yvain, the Night of the Lion. It is a part of the Round Table Camelot stories done in graphic novel format. It is wonderful. I particularly love this story. I love the story of the Knights of the Round Table. But it takes kids on adventures. It introduces them a little bit to what language is like because it's Tobin Anderson writing the language. And he's not going to be, hark, there's a dragon. It's going to be a little bit denser than that. And then contemporary fiction. I think I let Karen talk in just a moment. This is for very, very adult kind of readers in high school. MWD is the story of a woman who comes back from Iraq, Afghanistan, and she has been horribly wounded and lost her service animal in a roadside bombing. And she is just PTSD personified. And it's how finding a stray dog and working at the shelter where the dog is brings her back closer to being able to accept that she's now home, things are safe, she can do more with her life. But it is very intense because it talks about post-traumatic stress disorder and how that is exhibited in some of our soldiers. Now you can talk.
This one summer, everybody should know about this. It won a Caldecott Award, which was kind of like a big first type thing. Not for elementary school, so just because it won a Caldecott doesn't mean it's an elementary level book. It basically is a coming of age story, and two friends that kind of hang out over the summer and grow apart because one's starting to like boys, the other isn't, so just coming of age.
Roller Girl, I think everybody knows that one. You should. If you don't, again, leave. The door's over there. We also have autobiography, memoirs, and biography, which is kind of like nonfiction kind of showing up. We've got like 4 minutes, so go for it.
First college experience.
Learning to be a chef.
Written by the guy who went to school with Jeffrey Dahmer. Andre the Giant's life. I learned a ton.
El Defo was a Newbery honor, so it's about a young character who is CC Bell, but in rabbit form, who has to wear not only hearing aids, but a great big amplifier on her chest. And of course, what do the kids do? They make fun of her. They call her names.
Definitely should know this.
And here's the new Shannon Hale with Lee Yuen Pham doing the illustrations. Everybody that I've talked to have said, if I just had this book at the right time. It's about trying to find friends, trying to keep friends, what happens when your friend betrays you. And all this happens on the cusp of junior high. So it's actually appropriate for intermediate kids, but I'm telling you, my turn at this bat was high school. And I still would have found this comforting in high school. I found it comforting as a 64-year-old, which is strange. Nonfiction.
Science. Historical. Nathan Hale is fantastic.
This is another of the Don Brown. This is about the Kennedy assassination done in graphic novel form. This is set in Houston during the 60s, The Silence of Our Friends, the story of a black activist and his friendship with a white journalist and what happened because of that friendship, because during that time, that wasn't supposed to happen.
This is the story of Tetris, the man who created it, and all of the drama and everything behind the scenes of this game.
Science comics, again, I could have used these in freshman college biology class.
A lot of different topics.
Absolutely. There's more.
Primates follows 3 scientists, the ones you know, Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall, and one other that I was not as familiar with. And all of it talks about their 3 experiences in studying primates.
And now we get classics re-envisioned.
This is George O'Connor. Oh, love him.
This is Gareth Hines' Macbeth. I probably would have read more of Macbeth had it looked like this. But I now know the whole story, which is good. Beowulf.
Also Gareth Hines.
Also would have probably learned a whole lot more had I looked at this.
Here's his new one, just about to come out. It's Poe, and the next slide shows the table of content. So it covers the Raven, the Bells, Telltale Heart, Pendulum, Annalee, Case of the
Cask of Amontillado.
and the Master of Death.
There's a whole series here, the Stratford Zoo Midnight Review. When the zookeepers go home, the animals put on Shakespeare. So here's Macbeth, but they've also done Romeo and Juliet. It's a whole lot of fun. Here is The Odyssey by Gareth Hines. I think of all those kids we torment and torture with them trying to read this in a different format, when really the graphic novel will give them all they need to know. Snow White by Matt Phelan.
This is awesome.
Set in the 1930s. It's, instead of 7 dwarves, it's 7 newsies.
Oh, sorry, Mighty Jack. This is a retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk, but it's a boy who has a sister that has autism, and they have problems, of course, with what grows in his backyard. And there's the second one that's coming out September.
And then we have adaptations.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to skip that one.
Yep.
The Golden Compass is being adapted into graphic novel. The first book is going to take 3 volumes just to get everything in. And if you've seen The Golden Compass, you understand why. But again, for kids who will never access Philip Pullman's book in its traditional format, this allows them to enter into the world of Dust, to learn about everything that's happening with Lyra and all the people in her life. Merchant of Venice, hello, Little Shakespeare.
So
There's Romeo and Juliet.
Graveyard Book, also adapted into graphic novel form in 2 volumes. And then there are a lot of others that are adapted. Now, like I said, not all are quality necessarily, but
Twilight.
Legend by Marie Lu and the one series of that is a fantastic
Yeah.
adaptation of the novels. They're great. Raw and Ruin by Jonathan Baker, it's a zombie series. These are like stories from the world, so it's not necessarily a retelling of the books. It's other stories within, and it's great as well.
And finally, what do we call these? They're hybrids. And there are more and more hybrids coming out every day. I read one this last week called Thornhill, which has the exposition and then the double-page spreads of nothing but the illustrations to move the story forward. It's a fascinating look at what I think is a future trend in terms of books. So when you get the PowerPoint, when you get the video, it'll also have all these resources for you if you want to know more about graphic novels, including a wonderful teacher's guide right there at the top from Random House, which I wrote. And then there's one on activities, which somebody else wrote. It's not nearly as good.
Now there's a graphic novel booth in the back. There's a graphic novel booth down there, and they have this little thing that I picked up called Bookshelf, and it's by Diamond Comics. Graphic novel resource for educators and librarians. It's a great book because it has some articles on